Fantastic. So, welcome everyone. This week we are looking at the concept of awe, which is embracing awareness, wonder, and empathy without judgment, expression without fear, and connection without limits. Our guest is an award-winning journalist and author of the New York Times bestselling book, Never Enough: When Achievement Pressure Becomes Toxic, and What We Can Do About It. She's a frequent contributor to the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, and appears on national television to discuss her articles and relevant topics in the news. After graduating from Harvard College, Wallace began her journalism career at CBS 60 Minutes, where she was part of a team that won the Robert F. Kennedy Awards for Excellence in Journalism. She's a journalism fellow at the Center for Parent and Teen Communications at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and serves on the board of the Coalition for the Homeless in New York City, where she lives with her husband and their 3 children. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to be here on a bright Sunday morning. So thank you all.
Fantastic. Well, we're excited about you. So tell me, what surprised you about the research?
So this book opened my eyes. So I was looking for, this book is sort of, my first book is aimed at teens particularly. And I was looking for who were the teens who were thriving despite the mental health issues, that are being felt nationwide. And what these teens had in common was an idea called mattering. Mattering is not my idea. It's been around since the 1980s. And researchers who study it say mattering is the feeling of feeling valued for who you are deep inside, away from your achievements and successes. And the second part of mattering is feeling relied on or depended on to add value back to others, to family, to friends, to colleagues, to your wider community. So this idea of feeling valued and adding value, it acts like a protective shield. It doesn't mean that teens and adults, who feel a high level of mattering aren't sad sometimes or anxious, feel down, encounter setbacks. But what mattering does, according to the researchers, is it acts like a kind of buoy that lifts us up and makes us more resilient. So mattering has been studied among populations all over the world. Mattering matters throughout the lifespan. So it matters, in adolescence when we're developing a sense of self, but it matters throughout the course of our lives. Whether we feel like we matter at work is very important, whether we feel like we matter to our families, to our friends, and to our larger society are important for our mental health and well-being. Researchers who study mattering, and then I'll be quiet, Shari, but I get very inspired by this.
No, don't be quiet.
Okay.
You matter, baby.
Researchers who study mattering say that after the drive for food, human need for food and shelter, it is the instinct to matter that drives human behavior for better or for worse. So when we feel like we matter, we show up to the world in positive ways. We want to contribute at work. We want to make an impact socially in our community. But when we are chronically made to feel like we don't matter, 2 pathways can happen. We can turn against ourselves, become anxious and depressed, turn to substances to alleviate, even just temporarily, those painful feelings that we don't actually matter. Or we can act out in anger. Shooters, mass shootings are among the most tragic example. I don't matter, I'll show you I matter.
Exactly.
But when we don't feel like we matter, there's a third path we can take. We can actually, that is sort of at the root of so many important movements in our society. The Black Lives Matter movement, suffrage, the right to vote, all of these things, when we are made to feel like we matter, if we can collectively work together to bring action, to emphasize our own mattering, that is a positive way to responding to feelings of not mattering. So actually, I'm writing a second book. So my first book is this book, Never Enough, which is the one we were talking about, which is about mattering for adolescents. But it also talks about the importance of caregiver mattering. So whether you're a parent or a caregiver, your mattering is so important, because people that we are caring for, their resilience rests on our resilience, and
Yes.
our resilience rests on the depth and support that we get in our relationships. So the second book that I'm writing is the importance of adult mattering, the importance of mattering at home, at work, and to the wider community. And so I wanted to offer my email address. Should you have a story of a moment where you felt like you mattered, or a moment or an experience at work or in the wider community where you felt like you didn't matter. And so I'm going to give you my personal email address, which I never do, but I'm going to do it here. It's Jennifer, JENNIFER, BW, that's B like boy, W like Wallace, Jennifer BW at gmail.com. And I'm actually going to be creating a scientific survey about mattering, and I can send that to you. You could fill it out anonymously when I finally get my act together and get it going. But anyway, if you want to share stories, they could be anonymous, of mattering, of not mattering, of people who have made you feel like you matter or didn't make you feel like you matter. I'd love to hear them. So please reach out.
Okay. I don't know how much time you have, but I think we could talk about this forever. You have hit on so many things that are really important to me, including one of our core concepts in the narrative method, which is who you really are. Because if you aren't seen by yourself first and then by others, what's the point? Hello out there, right? I grew up as someone who was given the message that I didn't matter. And what really, really fascinates me is, what is that tiny piece of power that turns the inclination to kick back at what is not seeing you to giving back? What is it? And I think that's one of the things that you said about someone providing that for you. And it could be a stranger, it could be a random moment. But before we stop the interview, if you have a thought about that, I would just love to hear it.
So it's interesting. So a sociologist that I included in the book, Gregory Elliott, said something when you just said, you were, Shari, that you were made to feel like you didn't matter growing up. He has this phrase which has really stuck with me, that what gets in early gets in deep. So when we are raising kids, when we are thinking back to our own childhoods, it is critical for us to unpack our psychological attics, to listen to the messages that we received from parents, from schools, from friends or not friends, the wider community, about who matters most. I mean, what I believe, and I just know this in my core to be true, is that everyone matters or no one matters.
Exactly.
And we live in a society that too often has created this hierarchy of certain people mattering more, and it backfires. So when you feel like you have to earn your mattering through your value to the capitalistic system, through whatever, through your how you look, the number of Instagram followers you have, you don't have to prove your mattering. You matter no matter what, for who you are deep inside. And Shari, it sounds like that really connects with what you were saying earlier about this inherent worthiness that we have. Now, it doesn't mean that we can sit in our rooms and tell ourselves that we matter and that will be enough. That is a great starting point. But in the book, I talk about how we need social proof that we matter. We all crave that social proof.
Yes.
And we can set ourselves up to use the gifts that we were given, the strengths that we inherently have, to make a positive impact on others. And I just want to offer this brief thing. I have lots of advice in the book, but one that really seems to resonate with people is this free survey that's available online called the VIA survey. It stands for Values in Action Survey. It's a scientifically validated survey that was developed by the two leading positive psychology, really the grandfathers of the positive psychology movement, Marty Seligman and Christopher Peterson.
Nice.
And so it's this free 10 to 15 minute online survey, VIA survey, where
We're
you
going to
can,
put that in the chat.
there's
We're
an adult version and a kid version, and it will tell you your core strengths.
okay.
And then you can use those core strengths to overcome obstacles and find ways
Fantastic.
of mattering.
All right. You have to come back when you have finished the second book. That's for sure. Okay. I am going to share my screen